So Eleonor, this is the Louis Vuitton headquarters.
In Paris, yeah.
Incredible. So what are we doing here?
We're just about to meet with Jean. He's going to tell us everything about the repositioning of the Tambour, so the new Louis Vuitton, the milestone of what's going to happen in the next 20 years in watchmaking.
Amazing. Let's go. Come with us. What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution here with Eleonor Picciotto and the man of the hour, Jean Arnault. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Very good. How about you?
I'm fantastic, and I have to say I was so excited to see this new Tambour in the flesh or in the metal, and it's blown away like all of the expectations I had. It's an extraordinary watch. But Eleonor and I want to know a little bit about the journey of this watch. So let's flash back in time to 2021. It's August. You've entered La Fabrique du Temps, and one of the very first conversations you had with Michel Navas and Enrico Barbezzini is about the future of Vuitton watches. Tell us a little bit about that conversation.
So it's funny you say that, because I haven't told that story very much in the past, but it was one of the first conversations they've had, is to say, we've built so much expertise on our high watchmaking business. We've created those amazing complications. We really focused around spin time, jacquemart, etc., and built Fabrique du Temps around that. Why are we still making quartz? So I looked at them, I was like, and I could foresee what they were going to say, meaning we need to stop making quartz. And I was thinking, okay, like it's a significant part of the business. We're certainly not going to do that in an abrupt way. Fast forward 18 months, and we are doing that through that collection. So there's been a bit of a journey going through there, but I think it was more a question of finding the right product to do that and reposition it completely. And so what I say, talking about that collection generally, is it is an integrated steel sports watch. It's not a revolution for the industry. We're not recreating the new standard for watchmaking in general. But it is a revolution for us because everything else is going away. And so it's really that part of the strategy which is very important, which is this is going to be our only collection for the next 20 years. And this will be the real poster child for all Louis Vuitton collections in the coming years.
I mean, it's amazing. When I look at this watch, it's incredibly brave to me. It's brave on many different counts. First, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of an icon Last year, which was the first Tambour, right? Which was a watch completely different from anything else that had appeared on the watch landscape in terms of its shape. On top of that, to create an integrated bracelet watch that if it had been in any ways derivative, people would have critiqued it, right? If in any ways it was not comfortable and well executed, people would have critiqued it. And if in underlying from a value proposition, there wasn't great authenticity to the watch, people would have critiqued it. And I can't, because you didn't do any of those things. It's not derivative. In fact, it's incredibly original. It's incredibly ergonomic, and I would say, as a fan of integrated bracelet watches, and Elle and I are both wearing kind of some entrenched stalwarts of the integrated bracelet watch world, but we're gonna try that on. We tried it on already, and it's so comfortable, right? And because of the way it's been put together, there's very little overhang in terms of the bracelet, which is so important. And of course, from a value proposition perspective, from my perception, it's an extraordinary value proposition at the price you're asking for it, with the incredible quality and the incredible movement that's inside of it. But walk us through this process.
Well, first of all, talking about the critiques, I'm sure we will have some interesting comments in the various different blogs around the internet.
Constructive. That's how you're going to learn. Yeah. Practice makes perfect.
Exactly. That's the soul of a Louis Vuitton watch as well. You have to be a bit contradictory in the process. But I think one thing that we saw very much initially in the process as a glaring defect of the Tambour was probably the thickness of the case. It's always been a thick watch. It's always been assuming itself as a thick watch as well, whether it has complications, a chronograph, or even just a quartz movement. And I personally am not a big fan of thick watches in general. And so the idea was we need to thin that down as much as possible and try to pack as much movement as we can in the thinnest case possible. So we went from, I think, 13.2 millimeters to around 8.3. So significantly shaved down and used a few little design tricks here and there to make it look even thinner on the wrist. So 8.3 is a thin watch in itself, but actually when you wear it on the wrist, because the inflection point of the case is actually 2/3 down instead of being all the way down the case, you have something which feels around 5 to 6 millimeters on the wrist. Plus you've got that bezel with the Louis Vuitton signature, which I wanted to keep. Much thinner, much smaller as well, only visible to the wearer, and that was kind of the idea behind it.
I like the horological nerd talk about it, but when you actually look at the piece and you put it on your wrist, the fact that there's no lugs whatsoever makes the whole difference. And it brings me to a point where you've mentioned clearly the whole repositioning and the rebirth to some extent of the new design of LV watchmaking, but on a feminine standpoint, and we've been talking about it in recent times more so with unisex watches, but when you look at LV as a brand, it's one of the most powerful brands in the world. And you've got clients who are both men and women. I'm not sure that it's 50-50, but this time, with the launch of this specific watch, you're including women as part of the deal. And you're not making any difference whether they're wives or husbands, but they can wear the same watch in different colors, probably, but yet it still fits to both wrists. What was your take on that?
Funny you say that, because I think women are a lot smarter in watch collecting than men in general, because a woman will wear a man's watch, what is traditionally known as a man's watch, whereas a man will very rarely wear what is traditionally known as a woman's watch. You see the transition more and more, through those small dress watches and things like that. But historically, women have been a lot more open to wearing traditionally men's watches. And so if you look at it just on photos without seeing the size, the thickness and everything like that, you think, well, that's another men's watch from Louis Vuitton. But actually, when you wear it on the wrist, when you have it and you can touch and feel it, see the comfort and everything like that, you feel that it's really a unisex watch. And that's what we wanted to do, where the size, the proportions, everything around it makes it that on every single wrist, it fits very, very nicely.
I think, Eleanor, we have to symbolically take our watches off and try these on to
I love that.
It's kind of a changing of the guard for, and understand what the watch is. So I'm going to give you the blue one, since you're wearing a blue watch. And I'm going to take this one.
Well, you are removing very nice watches from your wrist. So I'm very happy that you're...
No, I mean, because, the thing is that we talk from the perspective of loving watches and loving, in particular, integrated bracelet watches. And I think all three of us collect these watches. So that, I think, what was so remarkable about this watch was when I put it on, it just felt amazing on the wrist. It felt like something that was so fully resolved. It didn't feel like something that you designed and, or started the conversation in 21. It felt like something that has already existed for a very long time, and it's wonderful to see. So you were talking about how you kept the bezel, and one of the things that I always liked, and I found wonderfully kind of over the top about the original Tambour, was the use of the words Louis Vuitton that went around the side of the case. So immediately, knowing you and you knowing that you're a discreet person, knowing that you're a guy of kind of like, subtlety, I was like, is he going to keep that, right? And the fact that you've made it so subtle that it's almost like an invisible signature on the bezel of this watch, which is ultra thin, and which is almost like a bezel-less watch as well, I mean, is phenomenal. But I think the first thing that I notice is it's 40 mm or 40 mm at its base and narrows to 39 mm at the sapphire crystal. But because there's no lugs, the integration of the bracelet is just incredibly seamless. So how's it feeling on your wrist, Eleanor?
I'm going to say something which is probably politically incorrect, but I'm going to say it, is the minute I put it on my wrist, I kind of had the same feeling when I put an Octo Finissimo for the very first time. In a sense that it was so thin, so light, and so supple, as if I was wearing silk, that in 5 minutes from that, I might be, where's my watch? Because I wouldn't be feeling the wrist. And I think it's one of the best exercise that could ever be achieved when you're designing a watch, and when all of a sudden somebody puts it on the wrist, and then you wait 5 minutes and then you don't feel it. And to me, right now, with everything that's happening, our way of life, the way we travel, the way we do sports, and the fact that we wear watches on a daily basis because it's our thing, then bravo.
Well, thank you very much. And that bracelet was also obviously a big point of attention. It is our first integrated steel sports watch. So if we are going to make a first of anything, we have to do it right. And so, a bit like car manufacturers engineer the sound that you do when you close the door, There was a lot of engineering happening on that bracelet. First of all, with the sound, the way it feels, the comfort, the links, the polishing, the different details. And one specific detail that I particularly love on that bracelet is, about halfway through the development process, we had an arbitrage to make. On the first 5 links, you have that decreasing width of the bracelet, It goes from, 23 millimeters down to 20 or something like that. And we had 2 choices. Either we had to do it with a curved decrease of length, or a straight line at every single link. The straight line was 30% cheaper. Obviously, we chose the curved one, you might guess. But if you look at the difference, one bracelet next to one another, one next to the other, you just see the difference just a tiny little bit. there's like a 0.1 millimeter difference between the two, but we still decided to go with the curved one because again, if we want to do it, we need to do it right.
Dude.
So now you're literally a couple of hours before the launch. When you enter the room, I felt like it was a kid entering the room the day of Christmas, right, ready to, excited to open this new present. What's your fear right now?
Fear, wow.
Fear and feel. I guess two words contradict, but they're as interesting.
Excited that these 2 years are reaching an end. Sad a little bit as well because there's always something you can improve, something you can bring to the watch and added extra detail. But very excited to see the reception, first of all from the community, but also from our clients. We're not going to produce a whole lot of them anyway. La Fabrique du Temps is geared towards small series, unique pieces, all these kinds of small horological facts that we do over the years. So I'm not too scared about sales in a way, but it's more seeing the reception of traditional collectors, traditional people that are into the industry, that are collecting these kinds of pieces as well, and see if Louis Vuitton comes on the map through these pieces slowly. Well,
actually, that's a really interesting point that you make, because I remember when you were first telling me about this process, you said that you felt that there was a bit of a disconnect between the watch division of Vuitton and the rest of Vuitton. Mm-hmm. And you said that just because it may be one of the smaller divisions, it doesn't mean we can't create the highest level of desirability in there, right? And talk to me about how this is the first step towards creating that incredibly high level of desirability across all of the timepieces, right?
Well, what I was saying earlier is that it's not about that product, it's about everything we're doing around it. So we are removing every single watch of our entry level of our collections to profit that, and that will be our only collection going in the future. But it's the beginning of a transition phase. We're not only going to have that collection, there are other collections that are going to come in the next 18 months. And it's just the beginning for us. So because, again, we've built so much expertise on the high watchmaking, which is doing very well. We have a lot of clients that are appreciating our products in general. We want to distill that savoir-faire into our entry level. And so now you can consider that with this collection and the collections that will come in the future, all of our collections will have one level of design language, one level of quality, one level of standard of finishing. Everything will be on the same level. Contrary of what has been done in the past, where you have some entry level which is at that level of finishing, right, the high end which is at that level. And so we're bringing the low level all the way up to the high watchmaking,
I could never imagine this to be an entry level watch when I look at it, and I know the movement's being made by Alain Chizel, Cirque Horlogère. Yes. But when I look at just the perlage that's been applied to the plate that's underneath the micro rotor that you don't even see most of the time, that's extraordinary. When I look at the quality of the sort of grenet finish contrasted by these beautiful angles as well, it's absolutely stunning. And I know it's a movement that was created specifically by Vuitton. 100%. The bridges and plates are representative of the Vuitton design language as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing about this watch that's not really well executed.
And about that finishing, we could have gone Côte de Genève, we could have gone the traditional way, but people expect us there. People expect us to try to really compete with the traditional watchmaking brands, but we had, as being Vuitton, we had to be a bit more creative. We had to bring our own take to finishing, our own take to movement architecture as well, which is why we did the guilloche pattern on the micro rotor as well as the finishing on the bridges. We have to bring something different, transparent sapphires. We need to go that extra mile. If we only do Côte de Genève and only do the traditional finishing, then we're a bit lazy, and we stay on the traditional sort of Swiss way of doing things. But we are not a Swiss brand, we are a French brand. We need to do things differently, and we have to triple the efforts to put a dent into the watch industry as well, because we're not seen as a watchmaker yet, but we will over time.
Amazing. I have to say this is, and maybe this is a slightly provocative statement, but this was a super important watch for you, right? Because you have, since you've kind of started working in this industry, become a very kind of beloved figure in the watch industry. I mean, you've got an altruistic spirit in terms of the Vuitton Watchmaking Prize to discover the next generation of independent watchmakers, and people love that, right? You've also done, something quite extraordinary with the relaunch of Daniel Roth, and now we see even Gerald Genta, and the first watch of which has appeared in Only Watch, which is incredible as well. But this was a really, really important watch, because this watch lays the foundation of Vuitton and your work for the future.
100%.
And dude, honestly, it kicks ass. No, seriously. And I know, you were mentioning before, that there are people who are going to be, in their underpants in the basement of their mother's house, typing away, going oh, I don't like this or I don't like that. So I would say to you guys, respectfully, go try the watch on, right? Right? And then if you genuinely don't think that it's a great value proposition, if you genuinely don't think it's ergonomic, that doesn't feel great on the wrist, and that there's not an extraordinary sort of design language to it, then have a real conversation. But because it is, I'm an old guy and I've seen a lot of watches, but it is great. So well done, sir.
And to your point, one thing I want to mention as well, starting in September, these people will be able to test it in the stores because we will have them permanently on display in the stores around the world.
Fantastic. Excellent. Eleanor, anything
Merci
else?
beaucoup.
No? Well, John,
Thank you very much.
congratulations, dude.
I think I have more to add.
We're looking forward to celebrating with you, and so thank you for inviting us.
Crossing fingers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Eleanor, well done as usual.